We might be too young to have a spotted cow, but we are both diehard Packers fans.
I could talk about this for hours.
He was my legend. He was my quarterback one. Taysom Hill, forever in my heart.
We have a kind of a reputation of being the young and diehard fans. How was that, Dr. Pepper Taysom?
Amazing.
Okay, good. Let's keep it under 25 minutes, all right?
How are we doing, everybody? Welcome to episode 120 of the Underage Packers podcast. I'm Joey, and joining me is NFL insider who we are not allowed to comment on why he is labeled as an NFL insider, but it's NFL insider Big B. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing absolutely phenomenal. My ego is absolutely through the roof right now, and I'm enjoying every second of it. So I'm doing great.
I'm sure of it. So today, I would say to preview the Eagles game, but that's not really the case. We talked mostly about why the Packers suck. A lovely chat with the one and only Ryan Wood. Man, Ryan has been one of my favorite folks on Packers Twitter for a long time. I remember following him. This is a deep cut for all my folks out there who followed Ryan Wood when his profile picture was a kid looking through the mailbox. I remember that era of Ryan Wood, all right?
Yes, I do.
One of my favorite Packers writers. So I got to talk to him at August at training camp, and that was so awesome to meet him. And now today we have him on the Underage Packers podcast. So let's just jump right into it with Ryan Wood. We are now joined by Packers writer Ryan Wood. Ryan, thank you so much taking the time to join us on your mini bye week here.
It's great catching up with you, Joey, and we've seen each other since what, August? Is that right?
Right.
Different times, we would call those.
Yeah.
Very different times. Amazing how quickly things can change.
For sure. I mean, I look back at that time in August, and I mean, training camp always kind of has this, euphoric feeling about the team. There's no worries at all. And that quickly came crashing down. I mean, I guess even into October, hopes were still pretty high, but now things are looking bleak in this November month of the season. And I always say I'm the person that will not give up hope until, the final whistle rings, until there's zeros on the clock. But I gave up pretty early this season. I was holding on hope until just about, maybe the Washington loss. But the thing that I probably would have given up hope earlier or maybe later if it wasn't for the fact that even in those first three wins, they did not look like the team we expected them to be out there. So that kind of leads into the question, and this is a loaded one for sure, but Ryan, you followed this team every step of the way since January of this year until now. I'm not asking you to pinpoint it on one thing exactly, but, just could you maybe list some things that are due to blame for this disappointing season?
Well, I'm thankful that you didn't make me narrow it down to one because that's a fool's errand. I mean, there's just so many things have gone wrong that to pick out one out of the hat, it's a collective effort to get to this point. But there's a clear originating start date of their problems. If you're to timeline this thing out, it's St. Patrick's Day. You go all the way to St. Patrick's Day. They traded away Davante Adams to the Raiders. There was a variance of how that might go. There were some best case scenarios, some pie in the sky thinking of, hey, they can draft a couple guys and feel like they never lost Davante Adams, be able to replicate what and that's just not reality. The reality is that they were going to struggle. They haven't been able to duplicate that in the passing game. The passing games lack juice. The quarterback has obviously suffered from that. They still felt like they had a blueprint. And any blueprint for this team included a top five defense. As Brian Gutekunst said after last season, a salty defense. If you said after Davante Adams was traded and they reallocated their assets to building the defense, this would be an average defense. This team had no shot at getting to the Super Bowl with an average defense. And that's what they had. I think go in season. Matt LaFleur said it last week. He regrets not taking the bye after London, and for good reason. You go into the season thinking you're going to be a contender. You're thinking you're going to have a death march one way or the other. Week 5, London. That's brutal. You can either set up that death march early in the season and then rest and get a bye, get a Thursday night game late in the season, going into Thanksgiving, so that you're fresh for that playoff push in December, January. Or you can have the death march late in the season. And clearly they chose wrong. The biggest problem with that being Aaron Rodgers' broken thumb on the final play of that Giants game, and then not having a bye. Aaron Rodgers just said, get him a bye, that thumb gets rested, it'd be okay. But then he had to go play the Jets a week later. He had to play Washington a week after that, and it was one after another. And they just never gave their quarterback time to get fully healthy. And you've seen that. So just about anything that could go wrong has gone wrong. I mean, Rich Bisaccia hasn't been a miracle worker for special teams. They've had their issues. It's a lot of problems that they've been facing.
Yeah, you mentioned the loss of Devontae, and obviously just his loss of talent on offense is enough. And we knew going into the season, the plan for this team had to be not only, like you mentioned, a great defense, which Joe Barry hasn't produced, but also this offense had to completely change up their MO if they wanted to be successful this year. And whether it's matchup opponent or just simply Aaron Rodgers overruling Matt LaFleur's desires or anybody else in the offensive game planning room, the plan had to be to mainly utilize Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon in this offense, especially because they didn't grab a veteran wide receiver not named Sammy Watkins, and they simply have not followed that. So a lot of things you can kind of look back on from this offseason. Probably say they should have done more there, but obviously too late here now in going into week 12 of the season. Speaking of Aaron Rodgers and somebody who reported that his thumb was broken, he's going to be a big point of contention like he has for these past 2 off seasons of will he, won't he, will he stay with the team, will he retire? Ryan, at this point in time, obviously kind of the thumb injury alters it a little bit, adds a little bit of confusion into what we're really seeing from Aaron Rodgers of, is it his age finally catching up with him, or is it a combination of that and also the broken thumb? What are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers and his future with this team at this point?
Well, let's start with the broken thumb. I think if you look at the numbers, there's a very clear line of demarcation for Aaron Rodgers' season, because it was the final play against the Giants on the Hail Mary when he broke his thumb. So he effectively had 5 straight games with a not broken thumb, and then had the past 6 weeks had a broken thumb. And his passer rating has gone from 95.7 to 91.1, so it's dipped about 5 points. His completion percentage has gone from 67% the first 5 games to 62% in the past 6 games. So his accuracy has dipped. So you can't say there's been no effect of the broken thumb. With that said, identical yards per game, 231 to 230, identical touchdowns and interceptions per game. It's not been a night and day difference. There's been a difference, but it's not like he just dropped off a cliff when he broke his thumb. There's been a lot more similarities than in the variance and accuracy even. The one thing about his accuracy, it's the short throws that you've seen him miss, the layups that have been automatic throughout his career. So I think you've seen the thumb affect his accuracy. Aaron Rodgers minimized it today when he talked about just how much this thumb. He said it's the broken kneecap in 2018 was worse, and because you throw from your legs, and so he minimized the impact. But there's been some impact as far as the future. There's so much we don't. We just, and it's going to be like this year in, year out. It's been like this the past couple years. I feel like the one thing that we come at least very close to knowing, he's not going to retire. Like that's not happening. And the reason, the elephant in the room, is $59 million guaranteed to play next year. I know you guys are both huge Packers fans. Everyone's got their price. I got to ask you a question. If someone was to I'll pay you $59 million to take all your green and gold, throw it away, get purple, and become Vikings fans. $59 million. Here you go. What do you say?
Yes. Where do I sign?
Yeah. You have to. I'm a huge Mets fan. I broadcast that on Twitter. Someone says $59 million and you're a Braves fan. Okay. I might not like it, but okay. You know,
Yeah.
everyone's got their price. Aaron Rodgers isn't walking away from $59 million next year. That's not going to happen. No one does that. So the question is whether or not he's going to be the Packers quarterback in 2023 or it's going to be Jordan Love. And there's a long way to go in that journey before we know that. I'd be lying to you if I said that I had a good feeling one way or the other right now. We just got to let the process play out.
Yeah, and Jordan Love's performance internally will maybe play a factor in it. But the Packers front office was, I wouldn't say proven wrong. I guess you could say proven wrong in a good way when they thought that Aaron Rodgers' performance in 2018 and also in 2019 was a sign of decline before he went on to have 2 MVP seasons, obviously. But it will be interesting to see if and when Aaron Rodgers does get benched for Jordan Love. If that does happen this season, you got to think there are 1 or 2 losses from being eliminated from playoff contention. So, you know, I know a lot of the always hate Jordan Love people are going to hope that he never gets to see the field. But it will be an interesting decision that the Packers coaching staff has to make. And taking the focus off of Rodgers and staying on the future, though, is this team. I've been thinking this past few weeks, there's really no clear path for how they will go on these next few years. They don't know what they have really in Aaron Rodgers, besides the fact that, like you mentioned, Ryan, they're paying him a butt ton of money. And other than that, they don't have a lot of key pieces. You know, they have some promising rookies, but there's not a list of guys that you can point to and say they are the future for this team. Even Kenny Clark, who is relatively young, is going to have 2 or 3 years remaining on his contract after this season. So, Big B, who are some players that you think are part of this future, and really, what do you think is the path for the Packers the next few years?
Yeah, well, definitely cornerstones of the defense are definitely Jair Alexander and Rashawn Gary. I don't see them leaving anytime soon. They're both one of the best at their respective positions. And on offense, like Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs are going to have to keep developing into the flashes they have shown this offseason and a little bit of this year when they're not injured. But yeah, like you said, it's really hard to say like where their future is headed. Like it could go into a million different directions. But I don't think they're going to be going into a rebuild with Aaron Rodgers under center. I think that's just a given at this point that the front office will not do a complete rebuild. So after Rodgers retires in 1 to 2 years maybe, then the rebuild will start happening.
Yeah, and one player that I'm really interested to see the future of is Aaron Jones after this year, because when he signed his contract, after the 2019 season, there was, a lot of people thinking that based on how much he's going to get paid in the 3rd and 4th year of his deal that is very backloaded, it would make sense for the Packers to get out of the contract after the 2nd year. And now he's not showing any signs of decline. Packers aren't using him enough for the talent he is. But it will be interesting to see if they do end up releasing him. I do think, though, that they, as always, work something out with his deal. Ryan, is there any players or anything you want to add on what the future of this team looks like overall?
Well, the rebuild question, I think that's the decision that this team has to make this off. That's the quarterback decision. If they stay with Aaron Rodgers, they're not rebuilding. If they go Jordan Love, they're rebuilding. So that's the quarterback decision. And if they go Jordan Love, I have a hard time seeing them getting rid of Aaron Jones. He's their best player. So I have a hard time seeing that, but it becomes at least more likely if they go rebuild. Then they go air. You're not getting rid of your best player. You just can't do. You figure that out. If you extrapolate the rookie class with Romeo Dobbs, he's been very promising for a fourth-round pick when healthy. Obviously, we all know what Christian Watson just did last week. But if you carry that out more, Quay Walker. When's the last time the Packers had an inside linebacker as talented as him, as athletic as him? And he swam a little bit as a rookie, as rookie linebackers are going to do when they play as many snaps as he's played. And there's teams that thrown the kitchen sink at him and said, here, all these distractions, these bells and whistles, figure it out, read and diagnose. Rookies are going to swim through some of that stuff, but he's made plays and he's got a lot of athleticism. He's a guy that sure looks like you can hang a cornerstone on going forward. We don't know what they have with Devontae Wyatt yet. The book's too early. We haven't seen much, but go back to 2016. You didn't see much from Kenny Clark until December of that year. Rookie defensive lineman takes some time to marinate, and he's needed some time. I have no idea what he's going to be, but there's athleticism there. There's talent. There's definitely time to let that maturity and that development process go. Zach Tom is a fourth-round pick. He's had some good moments, so this has got the lookings of a solid draft class, which Brian Gutekunst is needed, and this is there's a core here that they might be able to build around, but it's just which way are they building? Are they rebuilding or are they reloading?
Absolutely, and I'm interested to see the early moves in this offseason that will pretty much give us a guide on what the Packers will do, not only for this year or the next coming year, but the next 2 or 3 years as well. And speaking of that, what do you guys think the first changes the Packers make after the season ends, after they get done with their January 8th game against the Detroit Lions? What is Ryan going to be writing about on January 9th? Ryan, besides, do you think they fire Joe Barry after the season?
Be really surprised they didn't. Like I said at the start, any blueprint for this team being a Super Bowl contender this year had to include top 5 defense. And all those first-round picks, all the pricey free agent signings, they've got the personnel for it. It's there. It's hard to excuse being an average defense with the talent that they have on the field. It hasn't been bad, but it hasn't been near expectation level. And if you're Joe Barry, I just don't know what you take on the field and hang your hat on. Like this is why I deserve a third year, because of this, and point to something on. It just isn't. It doesn't exist. When Matt LaFleur made the change, he basically went from an arranged marriage with Mike Patton, guy that he inherited, guy he was kind of forced to have, to a guy that he coached with Joe Barry in LA, and he knows him. This is a friend, this is a confidant, this is my guy. And so Matt LaFleur, Joe Barry has that going with him from Matt LaFleur off the field, but on the field, all eyes are going to be on Joe Barry and what they do as defense coordinator.
Yeah, especially Barry's former track record as a defense coordinator does not help in this argument at all. Nothing has changed since his stints with Washington or Detroit, and I think they have to move on. There is so many misusage of personnel that even people on Twitter are able to point out, and it's teams have clearly figured this defense out, even with, like you mentioned, Ryan, so many first-round picks, and some of that's on faulty evaluation from the front office, like in the case of Darnell Savage. But they have too much talent to be as bad as they are right now.
Well, to your point, how long did it take for Joe Barry to move Darnell Savage when he's clearly sinking at safety? In a week before he finally makes the move, says there's no one to replace him with, and then Rudy Ford goes out and gets 2 picks against the Cowboys, and Darnell Savage has actually looked more comfortable as just a simplified slot role where you just let your athleticism do its work. You just cover what you got. It's an easier role. It's way less complicated than safety. So, to your point, it's been a lot of delayed reaction on his part.
Yeah, if the Packers would only listen to Packers Twitter, we would have not only have Darnell Savage move to the slot a lot sooner, but also we probably would have had Amari Rogers pulled from punt returning last year. But hey,
Yash Knight, right tackle.
exactly. Yep. Just Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur just need to always have TweetDeck open, ready to go. Really. And then another question, Ryan. I know you can't see too much with your access, but have you been able to sense throughout this season, and we talked about it earlier, how different the expectations were for this team coming into the season to where they are now? Has there been a noticeable kind of drop off in, I hate to use such a Gen Z chronic online term, a vibe in this locker room?
It really hasn't. The thing that you'll notice being in the locker room is that they do seem to be very, very aware of where they're at. You know, Rasul Douglas said today, lose this game in Philly, you might as well start thinking about where you're going to be going in the offseason, making your trips, booking your trips. Because they mathematically, they can't have another loss. 9-8, I don't think it gets it done. There were 6 teams in the NFL last year with 9 wins. Only 2 of them got into the playoffs, and one of them was the Steelers at 9-7-1. It's not good odds. 10-7 doesn't. If they run the table 2.0 these next 6 games, 10-7 gets in. They can't have another loss. So they're very aware of that. But as far as Aaron Rodgers said today, no one's broken rank. That's pretty much true. I haven't seen it. I haven't heard anybody break ranks. So there hasn't been any of that yet. 6 games to go. Stay tuned. But to this point in the season, week 12, no, it's been about the same that you always expect.
Yeah, it has been interesting to kind of track fans' reactions to this season as well. I know when Aaron, it was after the Cowboys game, he said we're not dead, and then I think there was one after a loss where he tried, or maybe not tried to, and interpreted it as a relax or run the table type quote. And fans were not having it. They weren't going to go along with it like they have in past years, but this is a completely new level of bad play from this team. Like I said, I always keep hope. So I've been holding on to this Eagles game just because I think back to 2016 where they go out against the Eagles on Monday Night Football and put on a dominating performance. So I'm holding on hope that this, they're at 4-7. There's a game added to this season more than there was in 2016. So they're pretty much at the same record. Let's go. We're going to the NFC Championship game and then getting defeated. Let's do it.
There's one big difference there, though, and I asked Aaron Rodgers about that. The similarities are there because there were 6 games to go when they went to Philly on a primetime game, and 6 games ago now. Both times you knew they couldn't lose the game. It was a must-win. He's like, what was that Eagles team? 5-5? Team's 9-1. It's a little different. So I'm curious, where do you get? Is it tangible hope? Because it's hard to see them winning this week.
Yeah. There's that difference of the Eagles are much worse, but the biggest difference in my mind is that in 2016, the Packers had Jeff Janis. It's not with them anymore. So that changes the dynamic there quite a bit as well. But looking at this
difference.
Yes. But looking at this Eagles team here, they're the second-ranked defense. We're kind of hurting from the loss of Jordan Davis. We kind of saw them fill the hole as he's been injured by signing Ndamukong Suh earlier this week. They're not going to score 40 points on offense, but the defense will do enough. And Washington simply was able to hand the Eagles their first loss of the season because of Terry McLaurin and the fact that their defense was able to pretty much limit Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, and the other Eagles playmakers. So, hey, unless Christian Watson wants to have a 4-touchdown game, that's the expectation we're setting for him now, then it does look pretty bleak going into Philadelphia this week. But we'll have to see. Anything can happen.
Well, let me give one thing to maybe one piece of tangible hope here.
Okay.
What does this Packers offense have to do to succeed? What's like the one thing that they've got to be able to do?
Run the ball.
Exactly. Very easy to see where this Eagles defense is really, really good and not so good. They're second in the league in pass defense. They're 19th in the league in run defense. This is an Eagles defense that they got to be able to run the ball on. If they're able to run the ball on you, there's a chance. There's no chance. I mean, you go, Aaron Jones goes 12 carries, 40 yards against the Titans. You're not winning that game.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers throws 39 passes. You're not winning that game. You got to run the ball. They should be able to run the ball on the Eagles. So that's where I really run out of tangible hope. But yeah,
The list is short, but there is a list.
yes.
There is a very small command hook to hand your hat on. That's what we got going. Thanks, Ryan, for giving us hope, and thank you so much for joining us today. I look forward to talking to you again next summer. Hey,
absolutely, man. Let me ask you a quick question. When are we going to get one of those other media spoof videos? Those things were my fuel during the COVID.
There has to be content. So I kind of like I have to go into periods of studying, and then also I gotta figure out when the time is right. So I would mark your calendar for after the postseason press conferences when everybody goes up there for the final time.
It's great content. I love it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's always fun time. It is always I have to ask off of work and make sure I have nothing else filling up my schedule because it's a night. By the end of the night, I'm sweating profusely from all the editing, all of the audio tracks. But it does well every time, so it's worth it in the end for sure.
It's well worth the effort. Your fans want more. It's good stuff.
All right, appreciate it. Well, that was a phenomenal chat. I hope y'all are enjoying this Packers group therapy. That is this wave of content that we have been dealing with since October, and we'll have to go through all the way until next training camp. But it's great. We got to work through our issues together.
Yes.
Because Lord knows the Packers aren't going to fix any of their issues. All right.
I tried, but they clearly didn't work.
Yeah, the Big B magic could only last for so long, really.
Yes.
But that's all we got for you today. Next, we'll see how the Packers do on Sunday, and then they'll head off to Chicago for Week 13 to hopefully move on to 6 and 7. Then they'll have a bye week, rest up a little bit, and then for Week 14, we'll be going off against the LA Rams on Monday Night Football, which the both of us will be in attendance for. So I wouldn't exactly say an exciting stretch of Packers football coming up, but the Packers could make it like that. All right? Have faith, people. Thank you so much to Ryan once again for joining us, and we'll talk to you later. As always,